Hey guys, awesome, awesome. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you back to another epic, I want to say epic episode because this is going to be something that a story and a topic that it's so needed right now with so much going on in our world globally. So for those of you who are joining us here for the very first time, I want to welcome you all to the podcast. If you are a returning listener, we also want to welcome you back today. So today episode is epic one because we are talking about real human stories and experience today. So it's a topic about immigration and refugee and what it really is like for one to leave everything they know behind and start off fresh to a new and have a fresh start. So today we're going to be, so our guest today is known, where he knows what it feels like to feel like an outsider, one, and also what he knows what it feels like to look for people to look down on, to be looked down upon, right? Not in a good way. Also, um, just to be able to, be criticized or based on your country of origin, and all your religion, right? So he's an immigrant, if you haven't figured that by now. But more than that, he is the founder of Refugee and the author of one of the best-selling book right now. The title of that book is the Art of Resilience, right? And I love the subheading title. It says a refugee state of mind, right? So, guys, go get that book if you haven't, and you'll be very much your life will be changed. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you
Please,
so much,
you're welcome.
Faith.
Hassan. Sorry, I couldn't pronounce your last name. I'm like I don't want to mess it up
It's,
for you.
it's okay. It's Hussein Al Baiaty. I appreciate that, Faith. You're so kind. I appreciate you welcoming me on your podcast, and I'm hoping to, tell you a little bit about my story and maybe give some words of wisdom and value to your audience. Um, yeah, I'm just excited to be here. So thank you. It was, it took like a couple of months to kind of get this going,
That's
but
right.
everything happens for a reason, and timing is everything. And so I'm a believer in that, and I'm just grateful we're here now.
That's right. I love that you said that because it was just a lot of back and forth, and I'm so glad that you actually agreed to come on and just share your story with us. So, guys, so today he will be here sharing his incredible story, one of how he went from being a refugee and living on a refugee camp, to what it really means to find resiliency through a difficult time. Because I know that's something we all go through in life sometimes, right? It's not always going to be roses. There are always going to be some of those hard times. And so he's here to really help us, give us some insight on resiliency and how to build that, right? How to cultivate that. So let's get into it. Um, right. So when I first read about your bio on your website and just kind of learned a little bit more about your story really was, I feel like it was one of these three things: one of hardship, right? One of inspiration, and just resiliency, right? Those are the three words I would use to describe your story. Um, what do you think? Do you think is that accurate? Would you say that's
Yeah, I think
about?
that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's see, what can we start? Let's see. So how did you went from being a young child, young boy, um, in
Mhm.
Iraq, playing football? I'm sure that's that what you guys call it back there too,
Yeah, we
football.
call it we call it tuba or kurat qadam, which is
Okay.
ball of foot, which
Oh,
is
I love that.
football. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, football.
But yeah,
Yes,
it's soccer. Yeah.
yes, soccer. Such a different way of saying
I
the same
know.
thing, right? Depending on where you are.
Yes,
You got to love how language can make things so different and so unique at the same time.
of
So
course.
yeah, so basically, how did you went from being a young kid,
Mm,
just being able to enjoy life and not really carefree and not worry much about what's to
mhm.
come, right? To finding yourself and your family, um, being refugee in your own country.
Yeah. So, the story goes back to about 1990, and the Gulf War broke out. This was a war with Saddam Hussein's regime, our dictator at the time, with Kuwait, and America was involved, and bombings left and right. And I'm sure maybe some of your audience members and you even are familiar with when war breaks out, 90% of the population doesn't want anything to do with it, maybe even more, right? It's the very few who have that power, sadly. And so, but ultimately, the people pay the price, right? Because
Yes.
who's getting bombed? Like the civilians, who's getting, poor, who's getting the lack of food, it's all the people. So, it was a very unfortunate time in my life because I was only 5 years old, but it was a very unfortunate time to that whole community, that whole place of the Middle East, because, Kuwait or Iraq, like it's just not somewhere, like today, the only thing I can compare it to today is like, what you see in the modern Middle East, right? Like things are still happening. One layer leads up to the next, and we became refugees, but we actually left our country. So we had to go to the outskirts of Iraq where there's these salt mines. So we were waiting it out for like a week, hoping that the US military would just get rid of Saddam. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And so by the time we're thinking about going back, the United Nations forced Saudi Arabia to open up their border because they wouldn't let us in. So they forced them to let us in because Saddam was flying, his jets over this now camp, this makeshift sort of area. It's over by like a huge salt mine. And it's just out in the desert,
Yeah.
And we were running really low on supplies. So it was just like, all right, we got to either turn back, go home and deal with the consequences, or like face death, basically. But luckily, the United Nations stepped in and we were able to get into the borders of Saudi Arabia. So Saddam couldn't really do anything because he considered us traitors. And so by the time we got into Saudi Arabia, we essentially became refugees. And they really also didn't want anything to do with us. They kind of kept us out in the middle of the desert too, with help and aid from the United Nations. I remember just we were getting tents and supplies, and it's like, okay, go to lot, whatever. And they just kind of like spray painted squares on the ground, and they were just like, go find a lot and whatever. So we got lot 22. I always remember that. And then they eventually built like portables and schools and things like that over the years. But we turned that tent into like a mud hut, essentially, along with the thousands of other people, and that became our life. And I was very fortunate because I got to grow up with a very artistic father and a very poetic mom, and some of the best brothers and sisters a human being can ever ask for. I got extremely lucky because I had my whole family with me, and at a very young age, like that's really all that matters, right? Is supportive structures. And so I talk about that, in me writing my book. I really was trying to sort of unravel my story, sort of take it apart, and figure out where and how I have this behavior today and why am I the way I am today. And so in doing that, I realized so much had to do with the people around me and the hope they embedded in me, and all those kinds of things. So, I could pretty much almost take zero credit for how I became who I am, because there's so many people around me that nurtured me, loved me, cared for me. And I have to say that there is nothing to attribute to that except for extreme luck. Even in the midst of the madness we were going through in this refugee camp, so I had, there's 7 of us kids all together, and a mom and a dad, and man, that is beautiful. You know what I mean? And that became my tribe, my mini tribe, if you will. And they're all characters. So, some of them are artists, some of them are singers, some of them make you laugh, some of them are really smart, like my sister who helped me in school, and
Wonderful.
um, yeah. So that's how I got to grow up, and I continued to play as a kid, and they helped take care of me, feed me, clothe me,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure I have water. But there was a
Did it?
lot of situations where it was just hard. So
Yeah. Wow. Were you the youngest, you said, out of
I'm
seven?
second to youngest, so
Second
I
to
have a
youngest.
younger
Okay.
sister. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Wow. And I love that your family became your tribe
yeah,
and they were kind of there to have that foundation around to be able to build you up because I mean, wartime is not easy, right? And
no.
so many people don't make it to the refugees camps. So one thing that I really thought stood out when you mentioned earlier how you guys were able to escape from Iran, I'm sorry, Iraq, was it? But somehow you said that Saudi Arabia, they were actually not allowing you guys in as refugee. What was the main reason for that?
Well,
Do you
Saudi
know?
Arabia has very strict borders,
Mm,
and at the time I don't think at the time they weren't even communicating with Saddam, and also there's a lot of religious and political and even tribal situations that have happened over the years, long before
mhm,
I was born, and probably long before after I'm gone.
right.
And and again, this is very political. This is very like way beyond like what the regular people are there, and
Exactly.
maybe they agreed, maybe they didn't. I don't really know, and I don't really care at this point in my life. But sadly, the government of the time weren't allowing us to come in until the United Nations really imposed, like they were like they have to
Mm,
come in or they die. So it was that life
wow.
or death situation, because Saddam was ready to just unleash, and he did. He unleashed all kinds of weapons on people in Iraq that stayed, people in the north, people in the
Hmm.
south, and so he didn't care, especially if you were now a traitor who left and didn't support the war.
Right.
Um, so he was very vicious, and so we got, like I said, luck and God and whatever else you want to say really played a big role in how everything unfolded. But and I couldn't tell you exactly why. To be honest with you, I'm just gonna toss it up to
But yeah.
politics,
Well,
like
you were
everything
young.
else. Yes,
You were
yes.
very young then, and I'm
Mhm,
sure it wasn't the time where you were thinking, what are the reasons of why things are happening this way? It was just more of a survival mode, like, and you just try. I mean, 4 year old is not even
yeah,
you're
4 or
still
5 years
young.
old.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
really have any that's not
just want to
really
play.
your mindset. You're just trying to survive and play along and I think what you said could make sense because a lot of the it seems as though a lot of the things that happen around the world when it comes to extreme conflict, right? Um it's always the adults that have a lot of and the people within powerful positions are the ones that are driving a lot of these chaotic events. And it's just
Mhm,
like you said, it's the people that are less than that are the ones
mhm,
that are facing a lot of the backlash of all of it. And I'd always said that the legacy of war it's always um, going to affect the people that are left behind after everything, or the people that life was
mhm,
taken so soon and so early due to,
mhm, mhm.
I think, greed a
Yes.
lot of time. Would you agree?
Yeah. I think greed is certainly a big component of that.
Mm,
War is a very complex
exactly.
um ideology, and it's hard to put the finger on it sometimes, and that's intentional, right? Especially by the people who cause war,
Exactly.
or wreak havoc or resort to war, right?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes diluted to us, the people, but to them it seems very clear. But it's actually the opposite. To us, it's very clear, and to them, it's diluted. Meaning that with thirst for power, thirst for more, thirst for being right, being powerful. It's
Yes.
for a long time human beings exerted power and control, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could say that most human beings on earth today are at war with themselves. That's the biggest war of all, right?
Yes.
That's like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, that's the holiest war of all holy wars, is that you are at war with yourself. It's when that war goes outside of you that becomes the issue.
Mm.
It's that when you start to project your hate and animosity and all these issues onto others, and then convince people that that too is their problem, that's when we get to start to have war, right? But then the booty of war, right? The booty, like the treasure of war is, what you reap from it, which, sadly over the years, tons of wealth. I mean, look, whether it be Western countries or our own Middle Eastern countries or countries in Africa, countries in Asia, everybody's gone to war. But the ones that have reaped the most from war, all the wealth, have been Western countries. And so, though, again, this is why it's diluted. Though they say it's for peace, though they say, but they're the ones installing the dictators. I speak freely, I speak my mind, and I don't have much to fear at this point in my life, because
we welcome that other show.
Yeah, because at this point, it's like war is for power. It's to control. But for me, I can only allow that control, like, if I'm very uneducated, if I'm like not knowledgeable and not knowing of myself. And so if I allow a general to dictate to me what is wrong and what is right, I've already given up my freedom, because I can't think for myself. I'm having someone else think for me. And so however big the military is, they're really only thinking in the way that that general or that dictator or whoever is, he's dictating their thinking, or she's dictating that thinking, right? And so, and for me, this is where I fell in love with my faith some more, because I realized my faith was always trying to give me an understanding of freedom. And ultimate freedom is freedom of choice, which is why I love people like Muhammad Ali, who chose to go to jail rather than to go to war, right? He's like, you're not going to dictate who I fight. Only I dictate that. And my biggest fight is within myself, to control my, desires, my this, my that, or, the internal things and the voices. Because just as much as we have voices for love and compassion, we have voices for hate and animosity. And I think how we grow up, the people around us, the supportive structures, the hope, the environment, all those kinds of things start to dictate which of those decisions do you want to feed, which seed are you going to grow, and all that is energy. And so for me, again, this is why I keep saying I'm lucky, is because I got very fortunate to have been surrounded by people who were very, like, my father was an artist. He always tried to teach me about my heritage, my culture, to be knowledgeable. Like, think about this. In America or in the West, like, the thing that people drive to be is, in a way, some sort of celebrity, right? Like, whatever realm
Influence.
you're doing, influence, right? Celebrity, like, so you have leverage. Well, in a way, that's a war on, like, in a way, that you being able to influence and dictate people's opinions, that is very high influence. So to be like that, to be able to do that, well, you got to understand yourself first. That's why a lot of people in those positions are, they're, a lot of them are depressed. A lot of them, they can't handle that kind of pressure. So ultimately, where I want to go with this is that how I grew up, it's beautiful to grow up to be a scholar. It's beautiful to grow up to be, a person of thinking of, like, how to make your community awesome, right? doctors,
better.
engineers. That's why those things are important to us from our cultures, because that's what creates a beautiful society, is not just money and reliance and a good job, because that's what we've been taught by our parents who have not been educated, probably, right? Or our grandparents who aren't educated. But to develop a beautiful culture, which we are in the West, like, think most people are, in good positions, right? They're lawyers, they're educated, they're their own businesses, they're entrepreneurs, they're thinkers, they're not thinking about war, they're not thinking about holding a gun, unless you go to impoverished places. And that thinking is different, because that thinking is very survivalist. To where I
That's
grew up
true.
thinking, even though I was surviving, my father, mother, brothers were teaching me to think like a person who is thriving. And a person who is thriving thinks about scholarly, like, admiration. And that's what I fell in love with the most.
Wonderful. So you're thinking more of the future and how you can, you know, create something to, bring to the war, something that will be benefiting the, the society that you're in, versus thinking opposite, right? So I love when you said that, when we're talking about power, and influence, and how, I realize sometimes though there are people who may have high positions, and that influence that comes with that position, and yet they still have a good intention, good heart.
Yes.
They're still doing a lot of great things.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And then
Yes.
you have the opposite too, right?
Of course, there's
Yeah.
there's
Two
two of
sides.
everything, right?
Yeah.
There's
It's
two
just
of
having the
everything.
balance. The balance is important. So real quick, let's
Yes.
jump into, so you went to, after being on at the, refugee camp in Saudi Arabia, um, take us through that journey of your seven of you in your family total at this refugee camp, and the United Nations are there and they're assisting, doing what they can, right? Um, Real quickly, if you can just go through how you end up being able to migrate from Saudi Arabia to the US, and then we can jump into the next phase of your
Yeah. So,
experience.
like I said, something really remarkable happened in my life, in that refugee camp, was that my father was an artist. And so he started painting on, like, torn up tents, that him and I would go pick up when I would go on strolls with him.
Yeah.
And he started painting, like, horses and, like, the prince and the king of Saudi Arabia. And it was like a marketing scheme, because every other week or so, the soldiers in Saudi Arabia would come and, like, search our tents or search our, homes, to make sure we don't have, like, weapons or swords and stuff. And they saw my father's art and they fell in love with it. And he started making friends. He started, he would bring them tea and, like, let them rest and, like, hang out in our, so he used it to his advantage, as opposed to being scared and, like, worried. He thought of it as a way out. He's like,
Mm,
well, how can I leverage this? And I didn't realize this until way later in life, but this was happening in that time. And those guys started bringing him canvases, painting supplies, all kinds
wow.
of stuff to paint their families or their brother or their, their favorite scene from somewhere. Cause it was like cheap labor, basically. It was a cheap artist. And my father was he was an amazing art. Like, he was really good, right? And I mean, this is what he did his whole life. So you can imagine. And so he used that to his benefit. He used that to his advantage. And now, with candles late at night, this man is painting. And that's when he started meeting one person that, led to another and led to
Yes.
another. And next thing you know, the guy that runs the whole refugee camp, Saudi guy, comes and hires my dad to do this huge painting. He came with, like, Hummers and police and the
Beautiful.
whatever. We're like, oh my God, they're
Yeah.
gonna take our
You're like,
dad. And,
what's
like,
gonna
he
happen?
did so, yeah, like, because everything in our life at this point, this is where a lot of my trauma is. Everything is fear based, right?
Right,
I had
exactly.
machine guns in my face when I was 5 years old. I had, I've seen women get, beat up, and men get. My brother was, whipped at one point
Mm,
from standing for water all day.
a
Like,
lot of chaos.
the chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the midst of that chaos, my dad was painting
Creating something
his heart
beautiful.
out to
Yeah.
like he was like, oh, maybe this is going to get us out. Maybe this is going to, lead me to the next person, and having that hope. Sorry, I go there and
I know it's a emotional experience, honestly.
so that I learned a lot from his courage, a lot. And so that's how we were able to kind of move our name through the immigration process and get our interviews. And next thing you know, we come to America, and I get to grow up here because of how much he put into it, like I watched him paint for like every day, like 10-12 hours a day, for these people who,
Beautiful story to think of. And thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable.
yeah,
I know it's not easy. This is something that when you talk about it, it seems like you're reliving that, and that's hard enough, right? When you're going through traumatic experience. So I've been there, so definitely I got you.
yeah,
So thank you
appreciate it.
again. Yes.
Yeah,
So, man, so that I think there's a correlation between your father having that art and now you being very artistic as well yourself, right? And using art to as a way of healing and trying to cope really with your own trauma. And then that just kind of reminds me of how, sometimes when we have our gifts, right? And we don't really know sometimes how those gifts are going to affect our own life, yet other people's life.
yeah,
And so he being able to utilize his gift of art. Who would have thought that, that would be something as powerful to be able to move the soldiers, the people that are supposed to be this hardcore,
right,
disciplinary,
right,
no nonsense, I can imagine, right? On this display camp, to not soften their heart and see the beauty in this
yeah,
work, right? And then because of that one person, he's no longer seen an Iraqi man who is here, searching for refuge, but yet he's seeing a man who is very talented and just happened to be in this country in Saudi Arabia because of decisions that were made by other people that now is affecting
yes,
him.
yes. I couldn't have said that better. And so
Beautiful.
I think he was able to, like you said, reach their hearts and really
Yeah.
soften them up, and that really helped us come out of that situation, and he tried to help other people as well along the way and use those resources, use those tools. And so I learned a lot from him and my mother and my siblings in that time. And then now the ultimate test, like what you learn, now you have to use,
Yes.
right? And so my test, I feel like, didn't really start until I came to the United States.
Wait,
Because at
so
that
first,
point, yeah,
mhm,
go ahead.
real quick. So first, before
Yeah.
when you came to, I mean, you were still, so by the time you get to America, so you went to Saudi Arabia around 4 or 5 years old. How long did you guys
Yeah.
stay
So we were
on
there
this play
for
camp?
4 years. So from
Oh,
1990
okay.
to 1994. And
So
then,
about
which
eight.
is, I mean, yeah, which is in the scope of things and how long people stay in refugee camps, that's very minimal, again, which is why I feel so fortunate. Like I really got a chance at life. Um,
Beautiful. I love how
so
grateful you are. Honestly, you just you have this thing about you that even when we were speaking before our interview, we did our pre-interview. I just kind of felt like you're just real, authentic, and just also very grateful. You are not afraid to say, "I'm I'm grateful because this happened. Now I'm here," and not take a lot of bitterness with you. And it's hard. So
yeah,
I see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate that. I mean, gratitude is it's like the deepest well we have. No matter how much you pull out, there's always more.
Love
It's
that.
the deepest well. Like
Never runs dry.
never, because you can
Right.
get really angry, and then you'll be exhausted. You can get
Exactly.
upset, you can get exhausted. Even happiness will make you exhausted,
Right.
right? Like you can laugh until it hurts,
Mhm.
but you know, and the other hundreds of emotions that the human being goes
Exactly.
through. But the one that never, like you can never be grateful enough. You can never practice it enough, is gratitude, because I mean, I'm alive. My blood is flowing. My eyelashes are working. My hair is growing. You know, like what, my skin is good. You know, I'm
Yeah.
blessed, man. My health is good. I eat. I practice art. These are all gifts. And
Yes.
so when you have a gift, like anybody out there in the world, when you receive a gift, are you thankful? You know, it depends on how you see the gift. Because if you're
Yes.
really thirsty in the middle of the desert and you get a cup of water, I promise you, you're gonna be
That's the
really
best.
grateful.
That would be
Really
like the
grateful.
best water you've ever drank in your life, right?
Best. It's the best. I've never drank. I mean, even till today, every time I, have water, I just, I'm like, man, look at where my life is. This is crazy,
Yeah.
And anyway, so back to the story.
Yeah.
I,
So, mhm.
yeah, yeah. So we left there. We spent about 4 years. We went through the whole immigration process, all that good stuff. And then, so 1994, we got to come to America, Portland, Oregon. And I got to grow up amongst, man, like pretty affluent white people. I grew up like, like a couple miles away from the Nike campus, which is a beautiful area in Beaverton.
So what's that? Is that
Um,
like a college or?
Nike campus, I mean, that's where the Nike headquarters are, right? So like,
Oh, okay.
um, it's just beautiful. I mean, the entirety of Beaverton is just beautiful area. It's
Mhm.
like a valley tucked into the northwest, and the beach is like an hour away. The mountains are like an hour away, and like you're just in the middle, and it's just beautiful. And I got transplanted, from this desert
Desert.
no man life, like
Uh-huh.
literally like a different planet. I felt like
Yeah.
that airplane didn't take me from one place to another. It transported me into the future and to another planet. That's how almost unreal it felt, because I was 9 years old about that time.
Mhm. So did you guys get to
Yeah.
pick or choose where what part of the US that you could go as refugee?
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, this is a very specific circumstance. So the guy who interviewed us knew that my father was an artist and was
Mhm.
like, "Hey, we can send you. There's a church who's going to sponsor your family in Florida. We want to send you there because we believe like, it's a very artistic place and your art
Mm.
can thrive there. Like, your kids can thrive there. This, and that." But like a year before us, my dad's uncle came to America through the whole immigration process as well. And so my dad was like, I don't know this place, Florida, but like we got a letter
Wow.
from my uncle and he's in Portland, Oregon, and this place called Portland, Oregon. Like, can we go there? Like just kind of like, is this even possible? And he literally just asked, he's like, is there any way? And he was like, yes, absolutely, because
Wow.
we want to send people where they have relationships with other people that way they can grow.
Wonderful.
And so this man was just like him, and my dad got a picture of him and his wife, which they were both there helping refugees,
Mhm.
part of the immigration process. So we had two interviews about a month apart, and my
Mhm.
dad asked that man for a picture of him and his wife, and my dad came back to the tent, painted him and his wife, and then brought it back to him on our second interview, and the guy was in tears. Like, I remember that like it was yesterday, and I don't know if that helped our situation or what, but I'll take it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we got very lucky to be able to like merely just choose to go where we knew someone that can help us navigate the world. And though they were here about a year and a half before us, they kind of knew the area a little bit, knew how to get around. They had a car, like things,
Mm.
again,
Shocking.
another
Yes.
layer of luck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's what my next book is going to be about. Just luck.
I love that. So, I mean, you use that a lot today. So I'm like, yeah, that would make a good book, honestly, because a lot of people can learn from that, like how to be how to create a environment where you can receive luck, I guess. I don't really know, but
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So, as you exited, the first, as you exited Saudi Arabia, and imagine yourself standing on um, the entrance of this plane, and I'm assuming this is your first time getting on the plane. Yeah.
First
And
time.
so, and now and you're looking back and seeing everything that you've known the past 8 years, 5 years. I mean, yeah, 5 years about what was that feeling like? And did you have any idea what was to come? How would America like, how would you be able to transition now into America? Did you ever imagine what it would be like living in America?
I was so just I because I was really excited because my family was excited. So my excitement came because they were excited, and like
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh my God, no more carrying water for 3 miles, 5 miles. There's no more like harsh winters. There's no more like fear of whatever soldier. Like I could just see a little bit of their anxiety. I mean, my brothers were teenagers. They were like 18, 19, 17.
Hmm.
My sister was like 16. They were like teenagers when we got to this refugee camp, but then they had to be men, like
They grew up
men,
there. Yeah. Wow.
right? And so there's a big portion, 4 years of their young adult, late teenager years that were just gone. They weren't
Just like that.
hanging out with friends at school. They were like working and like trying to survive and be fearful and take care of us and be protective of my mom and dad, my sister, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So, but I can see, like, I felt like feeling it back now, going back, I felt like the weight kind of come off, you know what I mean? And I felt that within myself because that was my tribe. And so they were like getting excited, like, "Oh, Hussein, like in America, man, like everybody has a Ferrari." Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? They didn't know what the hell was going on.
The
No
American
one knew. We were just
dream.
making stuff up because
Yes.
at that point, you just dream about what it could be like. Because at this point, you can dream, you can
Mm,
think up,
that's
you
right.
can visualize a life that you could never, because something opened,
Hmm.
like literally an escape route, right? Like
Yeah.
that gate opened up for that moment, and then like 100 people could get
Walk
through.
through. Yeah.
And as getting on an airplane was the most modern thing I've ever touched. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like I've ever been in.
yeah.
Like I'm like,
No,
how is
like
this? Everybody's like, how the hell is this thing gonna fly? Like, how are we? Like no one could. Like we're all gonna die. Like it was. There's like fear and excitement and a rush of emotions
mm,
and I didn't even know how far we were going. You know what I mean? I'm like, is this an hour trip? Is this like what is time?
it's the
We
unknown.
literally, it's the unknown. Everything was unknown. And
Yeah.
I, you know, for a long time, I described it like, I think we died and like woke up
Mm,
in like here's heaven, and then here's like
hmm.
a little layer under heaven, and then here's where we were. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel like we died and we woke up like in this place, and then there's gonna even be a
Mm,
better place. You know what I mean? Like, but that's how close we were to heaven. Like running water, green grass, beautiful trees, people
yeah.
walking their dogs, like people on their bike, like shit you never see, I've never seen in my
Yeah.
life. Blonde hair, blue eyes, like cute kids.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh,
where?
that's so funny because it's like I had the exact same experience coming to America, and so, you know, so now you're going from having just probably one season or two seasons to like four season, or just the food and everything. I can only
Yes,
imagine. So let me ask you
endless.
this: so when you
Yeah.
got on the plane, was there a time where you were like, "Oh, I'm so afraid"? Like I know you said you were having a lot of emotions, which rightfully
Mhm.
so, because hey, this is the first time you're experiencing all of this, and now you're going to have a better life, and you don't even know like where you're going, but you just know it's going to be better or where you are now. as you got on that plane, did you ever look back and wonder about the people that you left behind on the refugee camp? Like maybe friendship that you grew the past time, the 5 years you were there.
Yeah, I think about that till today. That never goes away. I think my uncle stayed there until he went back in 2004, believe it or not, until Saddam
Wow.
died. So he never got out.
Mm.
It was basically a prison. And so a lot of families, women, were able to get out, but there was a lot of men that couldn't get out.
Mm.
You know, that's where that's survivor's guilt. That's the fuel that burns black. You know what I'm saying? It's, you use it because you have to, but it's good fuel. Guilt
Yes.
is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a reminder.
It means you
But
care.
it makes you care. It's empathy. That's what it is. It's empathy.
Yeah.
But I realized, growing up, I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to process it. And now I'm older, I go through therapy and I do this, do that, and then I understand it more. But none of this was my fault. So I can't feel guilty, but I can feel the empathy of it. And the empathy is I cared a lot about everyone around me, and I wanted to help and rescue everyone. But, there is only so much you can do as a human being. And then, my father helped me deal with that growing up, by saying things like, you're not more powerful than God. You're not more powerful than what his plan is. You have a plan, I have a plan, but Allah has the ultimate plan. And you have to practice patience when it's hard, and you have to practice gratitude when it's good. Right. And so how then, he's like, so now you, like, literally, growing up here, those are the lessons I started learning. It's like, now that you're here, what are you going to do about that empathy? Because empathy is going to feel like guilt if you're not taking action.
Oh, I love that. I love what you said.
If you don't take action about your caring, then you're going to feel guilty. But if you're taking action, then it kind of soothes. It's like medicine for empathy, right? So you're doing your best. You're learning English. That's one thing you have to, right? You're educating yourself. There's a quote that this is the best revenge is to improve yourself. In Arabic, right? Like the best revenge. And I always think about that because there's no revenge. Once you improve yourself and you get intellectual, there's no revenge. And that's the point. That's the point of the verse, right? Like that's the point of the quote, is like, there's no revenge. There's only like taking action to help people. Yeah. Right? Because that's the only thing you can do, is now be a servant to God and and be a part of the good, be a helper, use your empathy to take action. And so, that's where growing up here mattered more.
So as you went to high school and, moved through the regular life cycle of, I guess, any human being, right? You go to school, you finish high school, and then go to your higher education and everything. And when you said just now about talking about how you have to not use that guilt that you felt because you felt the people that was left behind, right? They were not less than you, right? Because you feel much luckier that you're able to get out. So how are you being able to use that guilt in your own life and to give back to your community in your own way?
Yeah. So I think there's a few steps to that, right? So the first thing that I had to do was like survive growing up here, right? Different name, different culture, different religion, prayer, Islam, everything, right? Yeah. So you have to survive that.
Yeah.
So when I pray for courage or to be stronger, you have to face challenges. That's the only way you get stronger. So we grow up and we face a lot of challenges, and that's okay because it makes you stronger, right? But I've been through a really hard time, so I'm like, as long as I'm not there, I know I can get through this. So as I grew up, I was a very fast learner. I'm a very good observer, right? And I can, because I'm an artist, I can usually duplicate what I see, right? So duplicate means to copy.
Right.
Later, as I grew into an artist, I learned to steal. What does that mean? So like, the great quote, great artists steal, okay, artists copy. So copying is like, I'll take the Nike swoosh and I'm going to put it on whatever, and that's copying. That's,
Like exactly as, yeah.
Yeah. And you may like mix it up a little bit, but whatever. But like stealing is like, okay, what is Nike doing? Or whatever company, organization. Oh, this guy has a donut shop. Okay, as an artist, how can I make my donut shop better or different? Not better, different. That's how we become better. And so by taking, like, for example, you take something from your home country, right? And you apply it to a donut, right? So you took the concept of a donut, but now you applied something old and traditional to something new and modern to you. So you technically stole two things and put them together, but now that's yours. Yeah. That's the essence of human creativity. That's all human being. Everything new that you have ever seen in your entire life has been one, two, or three things put together. And that person was just clever enough to merge those things.
Elevate it to the next level. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's how we become better. And so somebody else is going to take those three things and then put this one thing on it.
Yeah.
Improve it.
Yeah.
And so I realized, I'm like, oh, I got the English language. I can read and write.
Got it down.
Can do this. I got it down. Yeah. Like, what's next? Okay, I'm gonna learn. I'm drawing, but I'm drawing with pencil, with markers, with pens, with paintbrushes, with whatever. Okay, cool. What's this computer? Oh, I could do graphics on this. Ooh, Photoshop, Illustrator, boom. Filmmaking, whatever it is, lighting. Ooh, architecture. Like, for me, again, in the midst of people calling me a sand nigger, calling, all these shitty names, after 9/11, fights, whatever, I'm brewing. This fire in me is growing, and it's literally like a machine just scanning and copying. But once you copy enough, at some point you're going to express.
I love that.
And when the moment you express, you have so much reference, right? Because you've been scanning culture, people, language, text, fonts, and my eyes and mouth have always been open. You can take me anywhere. I'm like a baby because everything is a new experience.
It's what you make it.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's like I just stepped off that plane all the time, everywhere. I love it. I want to take it all in. And when you do that, and then when I finally got the time to speak in a speaking class, half the class cried.
This was in college?
In high school.
In high school, you were so confident then to be able to give a whole speech to a whole class after not being able to speak English for so long.
So I accidentally took a writing class, which I was like scared of.
Yeah.
And one of the last assignments was to write about anything, but it just had to be like 3 or 4 pages. And I didn't know what to write about. And my teacher was like, the best thing to write about is tell your story, Hussain. Like, where you from? Whatever. I'm like, oh shit, they're not ready for this. You know what I'm saying?
I have a whole lot of that.
She was like, shit, they ain't ready for that.
Where do I start?
So I told like, the most basic parts of my story.
Oh wow.
She made me read it to the class. She loved it so much. And then she was like, you have to take a speaking class. Like, you have to. And so her friend, they were teachers, but they were like really good friends. So she put me in the speaking class the next term, and then that's like her teach how to hold hand, like how to shake hands, how to look people in the eye, how to like pull your chest back.
Yes.
Yeah, posture. All these things. Again, I'm scanning. I'm learning. Everybody disliked this teacher. She was my favorite teacher of all time
Wow.
because she taught me human behavior.
Hmm.
I never understood human behavior. She taught me things to look for, right? And how to get people excited, how to navigate emotions, things that they weren't really talking about. But in speaking, you have to know that to express it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So those two very powerful things, learning to write, learning to speak, because I already knew how to draw, but I needed like a way to amplify that,
Yes.
right? Express what I'm saying, talk about what I'm drawing, talk about what I'm painting. You know, those I need to have more confidence.
I love that.
So yeah, that's what, and then, you know, I promised my father to become an architect, and then that's what I went to college for. That took 3 tries to get me into the architecture program. Again, I just never gave up. It took like 2 years to get in. They didn't, you know, the acceptance was very minimal, and it was predominantly white. And I was like, I'm not giving up. This is your problem. The problem is I'm not giving up.
That's
And
right.
until you accept me, you know, this may take 5 years. And I literally told the dean, like finally on my second try, I was like, okay, what do I need to, I went there and I was like, I need you to give me the most critique. Like, I'm getting in, but I need you to show me exactly how to. Like, what do I need to do? Who do I need to become?
What am I
And so
missing?
so I needed to take another 2 classes to learn a few things, and this and that, and showed me things about my portfolio. Anyway, long story short, I was able to get into that program and do really
That's what
well.
I think.
And
That's what sometimes sets immigrants apart.
yeah,
Because when you come from some place somewhere where you did not have any sort of opportunity whatsoever, you have to work hard for every little chance that you get in life, right? It doesn't
100%.
come easy. As long you're able to pass those loopholes or whatever it is that was thrown your way, and then you're given the opportunity to, you know, be in a country with much more opportunity. It's like a no to somebody is your yes. You're like, oh wait, you said no. Let me show you how I can change this no to be a yes. And I
Yes,
think that's one thing
100%.
that sets immigrants apart. Would you agree with that?
1 billion%. You know, and not just the immigrants. It's human nature.
Exactly.
It's human nature to want to earn something, and
Mm-hmm.
when we're given it, it's not the same.
Mm-mm.
You've seen and you know people who have been given an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, they don't take full advantage of it.
Right. There's no
And you
value.
and we know exactly
Mm-hmm.
because there's something in us that makes us want to earning something despite obstacles is literally why you have a podcast. It's literally
Mm-hmm.
why I have one. It's literally why I wrote a book. It's literally why I make art. It's
Exactly.
it's everything. It sits right next to gratitude.
Yeah.
They live together. You know, they're like neighbors. You know what
The
I'm
brother and
saying?
sister. Yes.
Exactly. Because earning means you learn something and you put that in practice.
Mm-hmm.
You put that in action.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's nothing better. I don't care who you are, where you're from, immigrant, refugee, or a person from here.
Yeah.
When you earn something, especially love from another human,
Mm.
because the only way you can earn the rarest thing on earth, which is love, which is what
Mm-hmm.
everyone out there in the world is looking for, right? In every possible way, love and attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I mean, just think when a baby doesn't get love, is neglected. That's like the worst thing you can do to a human being.
Right.
It's worse than torture.
Mm-hmm.
It is a form of torture. Love, and when we learn to earn that,
Mm.
is when we learn to love ourselves. So we
That's
have to
right.
learn. We have to learn to earn our own love. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so many people
Self-love.
Yeah,
right?
so many people, their voices in their head are so negative about themselves. They don't love themselves. And then
Mm-hmm.
they go out in the world trying to earn people's love. And it's like, it's going to be hard. You may earn it a little bit, but you're not going to fully attain it.
Mm.
And so, those are the things that I got to grow up and learn, and like really fully understand, because as an immigrant, as a refugee, uh, it, you can strive. You can
Mm.
build a business. You can do, and I did. So after college, I started an apparel print. During college, I started a business printing T-shirts for the local organizations at school.
Mm.
I started. I was just being proactive, and I was working my butt off. I started a print shop in my buddy's basement. I was screen printing
Wow.
T-shirts for organizations, companies who thought I had like employees. It was just me working late night, and
Mm.
then I would go to the architecture school in the morning, and then just hustling, working hard,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to earn it.
Right.
I wanted to earn people's respect, people's business, people's love, compassion, whatever towards me. And I spread myself thin. I had rough patches. I got really broke. I made it back. All these ups and downs were all teaching me.
Yeah.
And I ended up building. So after college, I couldn't get a job in the architecture world. Like, it was really hard, especially because it was 2010 and we were in the,
Mm-hmm.
economy was not great.
Right.
So after that, for like, the past 10 years, I built a really big printing business where we printed for the smallest companies to
Mm-hmm.
Nike, to nonprofit organizations, to schools,
Wonderful.
to all these beautiful things that I've been able to do, and then also build up a speaking business and all, like, my personal brand,
Yes.
and do all these things, meet all these people, and
Mm-hmm.
through ups and downs, debt, tax debt, this, that, it's you go through it all,
You've been
man.
through it all. Yeah, when you're in
Yeah,
an entrepreneurial space,
yeah,
it's all try and error, right? So
yeah.
some of those trial and those errors gonna come from, maybe all, like you said, taxes and all those things. But like you said, you're gonna learn from those things. And now I'm sure you have learned so much from those things. And now you are able to become a better entrepreneur, which that's what sometimes, most of the time, that's what life license is about, is teaching us so we can grow from them. Speaking about telling your story, and like I read somewhere in I believe it's on your website, that you had this amazing experience. And I want you to quickly share this experience, because I was really like, oh my goodness, this is why he's so passionate about what he does, right? Because like you said, sometimes our voices, our inner voices are so is I think of it as like it's a best friend. It's been with us over the years. It's seen every space and every aspect of our lives, right? But it's left to us to be able to listen and create
Mm.
that self-awareness to know that it's within us. And sometimes we allow the outside noise, the outside voice, to really quiet that inner voice that we've been given for a reason. So speaking of that, when you decided that it was time to be able to use your voice and share your story and impact lives with your story. You talk about a story that you had made a speech. Talk about a story. I don't want to share it with for you on your, but talk about when this little boy came to you and just really was inspired by your story.
Yeah. So I started speaking in like 2012 or so,
Mm-hmm.
2011, 2012, at schools. And I just volunteered my time. I would email teachers,
Mm-hmm.
professor, whatever it is, and I would just go and speak at schools and just do like an hour, 45 minutes. And then I would meet the teachers and maybe get business from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was sharing my story, that everything I just shared with you, from the refugee camp to starting a
Mm-hmm.
business to going through college. Because here's the thing, like, growing up in Portland, in the Northwest, there was not a whole lot of speakers that look like me or
Mm-hmm.
like you, or,
Mm-hmm.
there's few, but you don't get to see them that often.
Mm-hmm.
And that's deliberate, because, they people like us are successful on television, right? Especially when we were growing up, right? Like Arabic New, whatever shows, or they're athletes, or they're like,
You're right. Yeah, those
Like
are the
how
people
many
that are,
architect
yeah.
people did I know? Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't know them. How many? So how can I aspire to something? I don't know what that looks like for me. See, you know when you know why mannequins are so powerful in displays in
Why?
stores? So mannequins are proven, like it's psychological. When you
Mm-hmm.
put clothes on a mannequin and the mannequin is faceless, right? You imagine your cognition imagines you wearing that clothes.
Wow.
You put yourself there, like, oh, that I bet that looks good on me, right? Or when you see
Mm.
it on a little kid or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Your imagination is sparked by what you see. Remember what I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier? You're scanning,
Yeah.
you bring it in, you bring it
Taking
in
in,
because you're
taking in.
consuming. You're
Mm-hmm.
consuming through your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your nose, through
Oh
your
yeah.
touch. All your senses are consuming information,
Mm-hmm.
but you get opportunities to express through your hands and your mouth,
Your voice, yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that most kids, because I was one of those kids, don't have that opportunity to consume someone like me, a business owner, college graduate, architect, though there are plenty of me. There are many people that look like me, dress like me in the world doing
Yes,
amazing things, like yourself, whatever. But do they have a lot of time to go spend it with kids? Probably not. They're so busy with their own lives. Not to
exactly.
blame them or point fingers. None of that. I respect them and love them wholeheartedly. So I decided that I was like, you know what? There's business opportunity to go work with these schools. What else can I give besides printing T-shirts?
Mm.
So I was like, let me go give my story, give myself, give my voice.
Service,
Maybe
yeah.
it'll inspire some kids too. Sure enough, it does. It did. So many kids would come to me after the thing, whatever. So years later, 2019, 2018, my wife and I are selling T-shirts from our van, and we're at an event,
Mm-hmm.
and fun things are happening. And this kid comes up, and he's like in a cadet uniform,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and like going like in academy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, my name is so and so, and like I just want, like, probably don't remember me. I was sitting in the back of the class, and
Mm.
I had bad grades. I was acting up, and like, my mom worked like 3 jobs, and I wasn't helping her, and like I had a little brother, and I treated him bad, and he was just mad at his life and
Yes.
situation. Which,
Mm-hmm.
how many can relate? So many can relate to that, especially, unfortunately, like his father wasn't around, and
Mm.
and so he heard my story and decided to change because that's what I speak about. It's like, you can change. It's okay to change. It's okay to be angry, but how much anger do you have? It's gonna run out. This is what I'm saying. Like, so you got to turn that to gratitude.
That's
And I talk
right.
about all these things, and yeah. So he changed his ways, and he got better, and started helping his mom, and did these things, and he was telling me this stuff, and I got so emotional. I was like, shit, man,
Yes.
like I had
I
no
mean,
idea that would happen, because you would hope for that. But
yes.
when you see it happen, you're like, there's a power in that voice.
So true.
So,
What a beautiful
I'm
story.
forever, yeah, I'm forever like changed even by that, which
Yes.
really like solidified the importance of speaking and
Mm.
using my story to fight guilt with the empathy. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? Like, this is my way of
Yes.
using empathy to help others, and to say, you know what, guilt, like, that wasn't my fault, but what I can do is this.
Yeah, I
And
can turn this all around into something bigger and better, not about me anymore. Again, it
yeah,
comes back to service.
yeah.
It's
Also, you
about
made me cry twice. That's never happened in my podcasting. So just
well,
letting you know, you
I
broke records today.
well, you've been doing such an amazing job, and I just and like you said, like storytelling and using our voice is it's a big deal, and I feel there's so many of us that just feel like, oh, we're
Mhm.
so alone. Like that little boy, that
Mm,
story you just shared. He
mm,
felt probably like, I'm the only person that ever experienced this.
mhm, mhm,
And yeah, maybe his story and your story was not really 100% align the exact same experience, because no two people have the same experience after all. But yet there was something that you said to that kid that was like, light up a fire in him. And he was like, no, I got to make changes. And I just love that, like, you're just doing this, not because you want the praise, and not because you want somebody to feel, you want them to make changes, and you're hoping they'll make a change by hearing your story. But I love that he still remembers you, and you probably were like shocked, like, wait,
Yeah, I didn't even like.
who
Oh,
are
I went
you?
to your school. Yeah, like I mean, he was just sitting in the back of the
5
class,
years.
like.
Mm-hmm. That's the impact of finding our voice and using our voice for good to make changes in other people's life and elevate
Yeah.
our lives too. Awesome, awesome. So let's pivot a little bit. I don't want to make you cry anymore. Just kidding.
Yeah, please.
So I want to focus a little bit on this topic, on this part of the interview, because I don't know if you've seen, I try not to watch the news a lot, but I realize it's so, I mean, you can't escape the news, right? If you're on
I
social
can. I'd
media,
never watch it.
really, I mean, social media, it's always on my social media and stuff.
Yeah, it is, but I follow accounts that like
Oh,
educate
okay.
me.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. And I
yeah.
recently
But I see the
saw,
shit. I mean, you can't, like you said,
that's
you
what I
can't
said. Yeah,
escape the
it's
shit.
it's like it's
But
there.
you know,
Somehow you have to see it. And what I realized is immigration, and just as a whole, it has always been something that it's a big topic. And I feel like honestly, we're all immigrants if you think about it, right? But here's the thing. Recently I've been noticing there's a lot more emphasis, right? Because of all the stuff that's going on around the globe. So talk about South America, Mexico, and most of the other South American countries that are escaping the same thing we were talking about today: war, just a lot of different things, abuse, and all those things. And then we're also looking at Haiti. Haiti is actually going through so much, that country. I'm like, oh, they just can get a break, right? There's earthquakes, and then now we have all this stuff going on there. People are actually escaping. People are dying to get a better life for themselves and their families. And then you think about West Africa and Central Africa, Ethiopia. There's so many lists I can name here today, right? We all know the countries that almost seem to never have a rest of mind due to the crazy stuff that goes on there. Um, so it's so important for immigrants to share the story and refugees to share the story, all of us together, because that sheds light on our story and what exactly is impacting us. Why are we leaving everything behind? Why are we going to new places to start a life not knowing anything? Right. So according to, I did some research on this. According to this website is called the weforum.org. They said they did a statistic study, and it shows that there are an estimate of 272 million international migrants. That's all over the world, right? And actually, out of that total, it's like there's like 3.5% of that that makes up the world population. So it's still a lot of people that are migrating. There's different reasons why people migrate, of course, right? So in your opinion, what are the main causes to why you think people migrate?
um, it's our nature as human beings. It's it's human nature because embedded deep within us is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these rich boys, they want to go up to the moon and they want to go up to Mars and you know what I mean? Why?
You can say his name,
What's up
Jeff
there? Like
Bezos.
yeah, it's like curiosity.
Yeah.
And so that's one. So all human beings, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're curious. And
Mm-hmm.
Earth doesn't have borders. No, it didn't come with borders. It just
Mm-hmm.
it just labeled as like it's Earth. This is land and here's water, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can travel, you can walk, you can like we're the only species that pays rent. You know what I'm saying? Like I
That's
don't
so
care if you have a
true.
mortgage, that's rent. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course, yes.
We're the only species. Like it's ridiculous, and that's one. And then when you like, if you driven across the U.S. or just from one state to another, you're like, all
It's so
this
much land.
land,
Yes.
We have so much land.
Exactly.
And even in countries where it's like overpopulated, there's so much land.
Absolutely.
So much. And not only are we not utilizing, and people are like, oh, we're running out of resources. Bro, you can't run out of resources. It's because it's you're running out of renewable resources, right? Like you're running out of plastic, which is disgusting. You know, you're running out of stuff that we never needed. Up until 200 years ago, we never needed plastic. We made stuff that lasted forever, right? And as soon as it hit the ground, it was biodegradable. Whose problem is that? Modern countries, right?
Right. Too much access, right?
To keep other countries, you know, there's interest, right? Like when you get political, there's interest to keep other countries impoverished and other countries up, you know, wealthy. And it's somehow, some way made its way into their minds that in order to be wealthy, that other countries can't, which is absurd. It's like saying I can grow apple trees here and you can't. And it's like Earth doesn't care what you put in it. If it has the right environment, it'll grow anything.
Right.
So my issue with immigration, not issue, but like my understanding of immigration, seeking refuge, all these things. Well, why? Well, there's climate change. There is political upheaval. There is, you know, dictators that put in by you know who. Like there's just so many issues that are so beyond the people, and the people are just like, dude, I just want what you have, which is school for my kids, a meal at night, and a job. Like
that's too much to ask for.
It's too much to ask for. And like all over the world, literally, why would you move? For a better job and better opportunity.
Exactly.
That's literally the only reason you would move or want the ability to move.
Yeah.
Like if you have it good here, which anywhere, right? You could be in India, but you have it good there, like you have a good job and family and education. Would you want to move? No. But to other people, like, oh, India, I would never live there. But to that person, that's his home.
That's your culture. That's
he or she, roots. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere in the world, people don't necessarily care to move, but they have to, or they want to. Yeah. So, but here's the thing. When it comes to immigration and refugees and all this stuff, them pushing through up to come north, right? You know, whether it be from the south, north, or going across seas or anything like that. What we have to realize is what they're fleeing, what they're running away from. See, the issue, people think people coming here is the issue. That's not the issue at all. The issue is home. What's happening in their home? And if it's corruption, you know, natural disasters, if it like Japan gets an earthquake every other day. Tsunamis.
That's right.
Whatever.
They get a lot.
But you don't see them hopping on boats coming over here. Why? Well, they've built an infrastructure, right? They've built a society. They built their buildings and bridges and all these things, not to say that they're superior than natural disasters, but they've built them in a way that they can withstand.
Right?
And that happens through education. That happens through an investment in their country. That happens through, you know, you can name a trillion different things, right? Trade, open trade, you know, all these things, right? Like Japan's just like a simple example. But there are countries with endless resources that those countries aren't benefiting from, but countries outside of them completely are.
Yep, namely Africa.
I mean,
that's the big one. That's the first one comes to my mind.
Think about it.
I wonder why.
So you make the people, you know, hate and fight each other through tribal wars that are endless, right? Endless. Divide and conquer. I mean, come on. The only country in the world that doesn't celebrate Independence Day is the Brits. What is British? What everybody celebrates their independence either from the French or the British.
We're celebrating on their behalf.
No, they don't celebrate Independence Day because they owned
Mm,
everything.
yeah,
They decolonized,
they're
they
established
colonized
everywhere,
everywhere, right? And that's
everywhere.
why we have this, everyone on earth has this idea that the white race is like superior, right? Unfortunately, because they traumatized us in over hundreds of years, right? And I'm not blaming this idea, but what I'm saying is this is our history, and countries with resources can help themselves,
Mm,
but they don't because of the influx of influence from different countries
mm,
that make that country inhabitable. So like wherever I go, I can't thrive. Where
mm.
can I go? A place where I can. This place I
Yeah.
heard of, right? Called America, that has freedom, that has whatever,
Mm.
love, and water runs from hoses, like green
Yes,
grass. Of course I want to come here because my country
exactly.
ain't providing that. And that's where you get the secondary issue, because we're not focused on the actual issue.
Mm.
And the actual issues are, they're solvable, but the people, just like Einstein said, the people in power can't solve those issues because they're the ones that created the issues. And so we have to look for leaders that have solutions that can help dictate and understand and resolve issues, that
Mm.
because the same minds that created the issue is not going to be the one that solves it. So we got
Exactly.
to figure that out. And I don't know how long, I don't have specific answers, but
Hopefully
that's where I
someday.
stand with that.
Yes, hopefully
you
someday
know
within our next generations to come, they'll be able
yeah,
to
we just got to keep
do.
inspiring the youth.
Yes,
Yep.
that's exactly do our part. Um, and I think the next thing I was going to ask you, you already answered that. What do you think it would take for the world to accept immigrants, or just accept that? And I'm going to speak specifically to the U.S. because there is a lot of things that happen politically, and just all of just have all this idea. Some people have ideas that immigrants are bad and all this stuff. And I think you mentioned some of the things that we can do, that it would take for the world to have be more accepting and welcoming. You know.
hmm I think at the core of 98.99% of issues is lack of education, period. Lack of understanding. Because if immigration was so bad, your grandfather was bad. I'm talking to people in general here.
Everyone, yeah,
Your great grandfather was a terrible person for coming here.
came from
You
somewhere.
know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's been, unless you're a Native American, but even Native Americans, like, with the understanding of
Exactly.
world, like immigrated here.
History, yeah.
This is what I'm saying. That's why it's like human nature to travel, to move,
Curiosity.
period. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, it's like if you can't understand why people are coming here, and
Mm.
if you can't use your sense of gratitude and love and compassion and see the bigger picture, because honestly, immigration has brought money and wealth to everyone here. Always
Cultural,
has and always
everything.
will. So if you look
Mm-hmm.
at it in a positive light and a much more grateful light, bring them, because they're going to pay rent, they're going to buy food, they're going to
Yes.
put their kids in universities, they're going to,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? They're going to do well for our
Contribute.
communities. They're going to contribute. They're not going to just come here and eat up what you have. That's ridiculous. That's to think like that, because people don't think from an abundant mindset. They think from a
Mm.
negative mindset. And so not only should they come here, but we should figure out ways not to go in and infiltrate and help their countries and stuff, but really lead by
For
example,
example, yes. Love that.
right? We should
Yep.
educate other leaders as to why they should take on their refugees, or why they should improve
Mm-hmm.
their communities and how they can build wealth within their own countries, right? And
Mm-hmm.
start to dismantle corruption and uplift people. And I think that all comes down to education
Yes.
and an awareness. And I think, the more we can further educate and truly educate, not like bias education,
Mm-hmm.
we can eliminate generational bullshit thinking of how this world works.
Things have
Everything is
changed.
united. Every plant talks to another plant. Every species talks to other species. Everything, the core of the world, the sky, the clouds, everything is working in a system, in unity.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that has a choice is us, human beings. And we're not making the choice to be in unity. And when we do, that's when things start to heal. But until then, we need a lot of education, a lot of knowledge, a lot of self-awareness.
Love everything you just said. I think it's so powerful that, you know, a lot of division is we created ourselves, and we are the same people that can fix those things up and bring more love into the universe. So I love the title of your book, um, The Art of Resilience. And, you know, that definition, that word, it's definitely it's something that I think a lot of us struggle with, right? And then I love the subtitle that you have on your book, The Refugee's State of Mind, right? And you sharing your story gives us an access into that. As a refugee, gives us a bit of an access into the state of the refugee mind, basically. So what does that title means to you? One. Second question, in your opinion, how would you define resiliency?
So the title for me is, art is my gift. It's, like many people are gifted with science, mathematics, seeing the world. It's how you choose to see the world. And if it's something that comes easy to you and is difficult to others, that's your gift. That's
I
an
love
art,
that.
right? Like if
Yes,
you can bake a pie better than anyone else, and you
that's
don't
it.
see that as a gift, you're out of your mind, because that is a
Uh,
gift. Yours, people smile. People
mm,
smile is a gift,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
People just communicating in a way that's intellectual and beautiful and kind and compassionate. That's a gift.
That's right.
Uh, Doing anything that contributes to our world through who you are is a
Mm,
gift. And for me, it just so happens to be art. I love art, all forms of it, architecture, graphics, you know. But art is anything that makes us change.
mm,
So, you have your art in the financial literacy, right? Like that's an art. Do we need that art in our society? 100%. It's the way you can contribute to our world
mm.
and therefore bring value to yourself and others.
Yes.
So for me, it's art in the sense of graphic art, and to further utilize that as a way to spread a message of compassion, peace, love, all these things that I adore and
You
admire
value.
and
Mm-hmm.
value 100%. So, and then resilience, how does art fit in resilience was my struggle, was why I wrote the book.
Mm,
And I realized that every time I was at the bottom or at the top of thinking or doing or making or business or whatever it was, there was always art. There was
mm,
always speaking, painting, drawing, t-shirts, making art for other people. It was always something that had to intertwine with me and my gift.
mm.
And so the more I leaned into my gift, the more I became who I wanted to become. Was someone who
Beautiful.
receives money, value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Abundance, by
For your gift.
exercising and practicing my gift. And the
Mm-hmm.
more I practice it, the better it becomes and the more valuable it becomes.
That's
So
so
once I
true.
understood that, I
Mm-hmm.
understood my resilience. So whatever it is, and that's the thing, the art is the change I seek to make in the world.
Mm,
Resilience is the fuel, it's the tank I need to pursue that change. And in order to have that, I need to have a state of mind. I need to have a consistent state of mind, a reminder,
mm.
a trajectory, right? Like a compass has the
Yes.
north. So my north is like a state of mind. And right now in my life, it just so happens to be that I fully understand what it means to be a refugee, to seek refuge. And I
Mm,
love seeking refuge in knowledge, in in scholar, like in art, in expression, and everyone that dwells in that world is people I admire. And so to be a refugee is no longer the thing that happened, that is no longer the thing that just happened to me. It's something that happened to me for a reason, and it's to illuminate my gift. It's to bring the better version of myself to the world. Sadly, I had to go through a bad experience, and so did my family, and so on and so forth.
So many others. Yeah.
And so many others, but everyone goes through a hardship. You have to go through challenges. You have to, and try to think about what those challenges are trying to tell you. Those challenges are teachers. They're mentors, and they're very, very hard on you. But if you can accept their challenge from past, present, and future, and understand what they're trying to teach you, especially if like a lesson keeps happening, right? Like, oh, I'm broke again, I'm broke again, I'm broke again. Well, what is that challenge trying to teach me? Like, oh, I better go get educated on like how to figure this out. So now you get to use your resilience to butt up against that resistance.
Love that.
Because like lifting weights or anything like that, right? That's how you grow. That's how you grow muscle, right? Is you have resistance. But resilience is the repetition. So when we practice our resilience, especially through our gifts, then whatever we face, we will overcome. And that's my understanding of my own resilience.
That I love everything you just said. You're so well spoken, honestly. So insightful, right? Lots of wisdom.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. Man. So you spoke already about this, the most important, the significance of art in your life today, and I think you paint a beautiful picture of that. And what I took away is that you've always known your gift, and the best example that you got on how to utilize our gifts and how to embrace it and share it with the world was through your father, with the way he, was able to do that. And now pass that art form to you, and that gift that you are now gifting outside to the world. Um, so let's see here. Where should we go? I'm like, there's so many good stuff here. um, this is an interesting question that I wanted to ask. What are you most proud of about your heritage? Being a Muslim man, being a person from born and raised in Iraq. You're mostly born, I guess. You're raised in the U.S. And a person with basically um, dual um, worldview, basically having American upbringing along with your heritage from Iraq. So, what's one thing, or maybe it could be multiple things that you're most proud of um, as this as a Muslim person, as someone from Middle East, as an American, all of those piled up in one.
Yeah, I would say I absolutely love my heritage. My people are some of the most resilient, beautiful, kind, compassionate, generous, and I'll explain why. If you go far back, like I'm talking about the cuneiform writing, the wheel, human civilization began in the Euphrates and Tigris, right? Now, we know today that people migrated from Africa to the Middle East, through the Middle East, and then up through, you know, the Mongols in Europe, and then all the way through over. Literally, it's how it spread. But in that moment in time when it was growing, it was civilization, it was growing cities, right? Because they weren't just farmers anymore. They became, city dwellers, right? They were
Mm-hmm.
building aqueducts and they were doing all kinds of really unique and interesting things. They were becoming philosophers and they were becoming this. And then Islam was introduced to alleviate the pain of ignorance. The pain of ignorance is what we are feeling today. The pain of ignorance is when I don't see you as a sister. The pain of ignorance is when I'm very closed-minded. I'm not thoughtful. I'm not grateful. I'm not seeking the better version of myself.
Mm.
I believe that when Islam came, it had to do a lot of work to help our people in that region to alleviate, to move that aside, to bring together the tribes, the people, the peace, and then foster a whole generation of wealth of knowledge, an explosion of knowledge, astronomy, algebra, alchemy, everything down to literally understanding microorganisms and stars. Those people were pursuing knowledge at a rate that's unfathomable. It was like now, it was like the modern time, right?
Mm.
And all that was funded by a government in which pursued knowledge. Because at the core of my faith is seeking knowledge, is to better understand yourself and the world around you. That's how you come to peace. And so my favorite thing about my heritage is that it traded not just silk and goods and this and that and spices, knowledge. It literally brought the West out of the Dark Ages. And Galileo was not the godfather of science. Not like they, white people love to call so-and-so's the godfather of no. They were predominantly Arab, Middle Eastern, Indian, Asian, African, North African, I forget, the Moors. Where did the Moors get their knowledge? The North Africans. Where did they get their knowledge? If it wasn't by Islam being introduced to them, right? And so we have to understand that this region of the world has given so much to the rest of the world in the form of knowledge, algebra, algorithm, and all these things that now we utilize on a day-to-day basis, we don't even think about. But they're long forgotten because they just think those people are just some desert dwellers, camel herders, Aladdin, genies, and fake stuff, right? But that's not the whole story. As a matter of fact, 500 years of the golden age of Islam is practically removed from human history. Why? It's not good enough? We literally gave birth to the Renaissance, which the West loves the Renaissance, Da Vinci,
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't for our people preserving knowledge, translating it, improving on it, remember what I said, scanning, moving, creativity, everything was thriving. That's what I love. And I believe for me, I'm like a text message sent from that time. Like in order for people to know their own history, not just my own history, for people to know their history, their cultural references, all these things, those things need to be told. And so I feel like I'm just one of those people that got so fortunate to be from that region of the world, but I'm from Earth and I'm just a human being. And so all human history is my heritage. All human understanding, all knowledge, that's all mine. I deserve that as a human being. So if I were to go to another planet, I can't say I'm from Iraq. I say I'm from Earth. Well, what happens at Earth? Well, I'm going to take credit for all of it. Pyramids, knowledge, this, science, art, Monet, whoever. I'm going to take credit for all of it because I get to represent that entire race. It's one race. We're not black race, African. It's not that. It's one race, the human race, man. So I feel like I'm a human of the world, and I'm so lucky that I get to be who I am. Like, you peel the skin, it's literally, you peel it. Like, that's how thin this piece of layer, you peel it off. I look just like you and everybody else.
I love that you embrace that heritage.
And so I'm a human being, and I have to embrace all human heritage, good and bad. And my goal is to remind people of their good, of their righteousness, of connectivity, of unity, of love and compassion, because without that, we lose our humanity and we disconnect. And then that's when we think, oh, this border is where I'm from. It's not.
Right. Put
It's not
ourselves
where
in
you're from.
different boxes. Love everything you just said, honestly. So throughout all of your story, right? What is what part of your journey would you say um, that really made you understand your humanity, basically? Like a moment that you just realized that.
We all breathe the same air and we all bleed the same blood. Like, once I realized that, like, I would say a little bit after college, when I really started getting into self-improvement. And in college, I took a lot of like Middle Eastern studies, Islamic
Mm,
studies, just to understand my faith, and really started questioning my own faith, started questioning where I'm from. And what I like, it was like I opened up a gate of knowledge, like to a city of knowledge, and I've been in that city dwelling, and everywhere I go, everything I see is like that city of knowledge, and I see God in everything. I see human beings in one another, and once I opened that door, it was like it was very enlightening.
wonderful. I think if we all can just see it, see our journey a little bit like this, with that perspective, we can really heal and cope and be able to embrace others for who they are, where they are. I mean, I am a Christian here and I'm speaking with you and you're Muslim. And there's so many so many things that I am able to
Mhm.
relate to you and vice
Yeah,
versa. So
yeah.
yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. We're all human beings.
Yeah, you know who saved Islam? Christians. It was the I forget the king's name. It was a king in Africa that who saved the Muslims. You know, when they were first getting persecuted,
Mm,
and I have more respect for that than I can even. But that's, again, that's knowing human history. That's knowing your people. Once you know
mm.
that, it's, look, all rivers lead to the
It's
same ocean.
beautiful. It does. Yes. Yes. I think we
We
can
all look
all,
at a blue sky like it's
yes, no matter where you are, right? You can be in a tiny village and there you go. We're looking at the exact
yeah.
same blue sky.
We're
It's
all
such a beautiful
practicing
thing.
love in different ways. That's all.
Isn't that true? So we're getting closer to the end. Um, so outside of writing your book, right? I haven't written a book before, but I love to see other people writing this story, because that's another great legacy to leave for your generation and to always see it's a mirror, right? A book, it's a mirror. When you look at that, when you read that, or when you write a book, that's my way of thinking about it,
Hmm.
is see it as a mirror because you're looking back and you're looking forward. You're saying, okay, this is what happened. This is where I was. Okay, now it's like taking you to your next projection of what you need to be and where you need to go. Right. So it's a manual almost. All right. Um, so outside of writing the book, right, The Art of Resilience, how were you able to process all this trauma that had happened to you?
Yeah, I guess in some ways I'm still processing,
Mm,
and uh, I guess just remembering that I'm a human being, and that's what this life is about. The life is is a challenge. It's like, you know, Buddha said, life is suffering, you know.
Mhm.
But how else would you take a kid from third grade to fourth grade, or from fifth grade to sixth grade? You have to challenge them,
Right.
and you have to challenge their intellect and their behavior and their common sense and all these things. And so, how do you take a human being from earth to heaven?
Mm.
Have to earn it. Remember we talked about it earlier. Got to earn it, man. And for me, like that's the long journey. For me as a Muslim, I believe in a place where I no longer have to struggle. And with my thoughts, with myself or anything like that, I no longer have to struggle. And I believe my maker wants me there.
Mm.
But in order to get there, the best way to give that to you is to earn it. How do I earn it? Well, you got to learn. Allah says in the Quran, know yourself and you'll know me. So instead of, it became a journey inward instead of just
Mm-hmm.
outward. And the more I've gotten to know myself, I truly feel like I've gotten to know my maker, you know, and it's a beautiful communal act.
Mm-hmm.
And once we know that, then things don't get easier. But you see that there's a challenge in everything, and your patience gives you just enough space to see it, and then you realize what it is, and then you say, okay, what's the best way I can move through this without changing who I am
Love that.
and who I can become. And
Yes.
so I look at it as, you know, this world is an opportunity to merely earn. Suffering is like the rent I have to pay here, and ultimately I no longer have to pay that.
You know, something that you said just now, that is like a phrase that you said about the Quran in a Christian, in the Christian
Mm-hmm.
Bible is similar
Mm-hmm.
to um, those who love your neighbor as yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
it's basically saying, if you, or if you love God, or if you love, yeah, if you love God, you love neighbor. If you love your neighbor, you love God. If you
Mm-hmm.
basically, the
Mm-hmm.
way you are going to treat yourself, right? How you respect yourself, how you um show love and kindness to yourself. That same thing needs to be replicated to other people, you know. So loving somebody else and being kind and being, making life a little bit easier and just being that good person to them. It's basically giving it to yourself and the higher
Yes.
power. So that, I think
Yes.
that's a lot of similarity sometimes, like you said, in what we
Tons.
we we
More
believe
than
in.
we know
So,
of.
so that's a different topic for another day, I'm sure. So wrapping up here, life experiences, right? It can be filled with so many lessons. And you cover so many life lessons today. What are some lessons? I would say, give me one, just one lessons you've learned along your journey. And what are you most proud of today?
Um, you know, I'm most proud of um, how much I've learned to accept and love myself and build and cultivate a beautiful relationship and loving relationship with my wife.
Mm.
Um, there's like, I mean, it's the most beautiful thing that I get to have a partner to share life with, and that, you know, we can cultivate our communication, our love, and our compassion, and you know, support one another. But ultimately, like that, those are the things that I'm proud of. I'm proud of being as good of a son as I can to my mom. As you know, my father passed, but I'm proud of the fact that I was a good son to my father. I'm proud that I'm a good brother to my brothers, and I genuinely believe that as I try. Like, I'm not the best, but I'm good, and I want to become better at that. Those are the relationships that matter to me the most. Obviously, you know why. But also cultivating those relationships with my friends, outside of that circle. Those are the things that I'm proud of. I'm proud of, I'm proud of myself for waking up every morning and like enjoying my purpose, and creating art and making that the center of who I am and earning my value and earning my worth. Those are a lot of things, but the one thing I truly am proud of is understanding and growing through love.
Love that. Love always win. Um,
Always.
so let's see. I think when by the way, you mentioned your father passed away. So sorry to hear that. I know it's not easy since it sounds like you were so close to him and he had
Yeah.
impacted you so much. Before we wrap up, what is one thing that he lessons or something that he taught you that it's just, oh, you just hold on to it?
He taught me my faith. But the thing that'll never leave me is Hussain, seek knowledge and spread peace. And it's a quote from Prophet Muhammad who says, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, even if you move to China. So even if you migrate, seek knowledge. Knowledge is the city in which you can dwell. And that always sticks with me. I make stickers, I make t-shirts with that on, seek knowledge, spread peace. It's the most worthy thing to live for me.
That's
And
powerful.
he helped teach me that.
Yeah. And what does your shirt say?
Oh, this one says peaceful state of mind.
Okay, awesome. So for
Yeah.
those of you who are not watching the actual visual of this interview, Hussein has a shirt that says "Peaceful State of Mind,"
Yeah.
and I think we heard a lot of that word today, peace, right? Having peace with yourself, having peace with others. So, man, thank you so much, honestly,
Absolutely.
for being
Absolutely.
here today, for sharing your story, your resiliency with us, and just being insightful and so much wisdom coming out of you. And I learned so much today, and I'm excited to have other people listen to what your story is. And thank you for being here. Last but not least, I know you have some amazing stuff that you are doing on your website. And so how can our listener be able to support your impact?
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. It's been a privilege and an honor to get to know you, be able to share my life and wisdom with you. And, we should do this again sometime in the future, to just, calibrate it.
You hear? I'm going to follow up on this.
Please. I love nothing more. And I hope all of you out there, our audience, get a lot out of this and use our story to empower yourself.
Absolutely.
You can find everything for me at refutees.com. So just like refugees, but instead of the G, put a T there, like t-shirts. That's where my brand is. That's where my everything is. The other places, at Instagram, so at refutees, same thing. But if you want to get a hold of me directly and you want to go straight to me, you can just Google my name or LinkedIn. But the other one is just HusseinAlBaiaty.com. That's where you can find all the other good stuff.
Wonderful. And so they're able to find your book, right, on there, on Amazon
on Refutees.
as well?
Yeah, you can go to Amazon as well. It's on Amazon. Okay. It's at Art of Resilience, Refugee State of Mind. But you can buy it on refutees.com. You can go to Barnes and Nobles and get it. You can go anywhere you get a bookstore.
Audiobook. Awesome.
Audiobook, yeah. Audiobook is coming February of 2022. So I'm working on the audiobook version. Then I've had to learn a few things to tell that story through audio. But yeah.
That's so cool. So are you the narrator on the
yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm sure you're gonna kill it. So
thank
you guys so much for being here. Remember to keep lifting voices and keep sharing your story. And we are going to see you guys soon.
Thank you.